Hi, my name is John Light, and I've spent over 20 years working throughout all corners of the recruiting world. Our podcast, Drowning in the Tech Talent Pool, is a resource to help you stay afloat and get ahead of your competition.
Hi, and welcome. I'm John Light, President, CEO of Sabretooth Recruiting, and this is an offshoot of Drowning in the Tech Talent Pool, a panel wherein we're going to be discussing the intersection of AI, tech, talent, and what the future of work is going to look like when these things all come together or as it's coming together. And today I have three very accomplished guests joining me from different walks in the tech world. And I'm going to have a chance for each one to introduce themselves, and then we're going to get asking and answering some of the most difficult questions we're facing today. But before we get started, I have Aaron Warner, Jeff Moyer, Anna Belova. Anna, let's start with you because, well, you're into augmented reality and A is the beginning of the alphabet. So you get to go first. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you deal in.
Okay, so first, thank you for the invitation. I'm sure it will be a great discussion about AI today. Maybe we will have some argue, maybe not. But shortly about me. So I'm working in augmented reality since 2015, and I truly believe it. This is one of technology like AI, but will definitely change our life. So my first venture was for creation some products for kids with augmented reality, and it was books and toys, mostly from educational side. And we sold more than 15 million copies. But now we launched a platform that allows anyone to join amazing adventure into immersive technology. And the main magic that you don't need to be a programmer for this. You can create anything that you want in XR or AR using generative AI and our computer vision technology. And this opens up a lot of capabilities for everyone. Doesn't matter what kind of industry, but it's one of the steps when you can join when you venture from the immersive and AI technology.
And Aaron, I know you're a cybersecurity guy, so bring us up to speed on your background.
I am a cybersecurity guy. Formerly a chief information officer, so I worked in biotech, owned a lot of software, owned a lot of process management. Honestly, it was kind of a high-tech manufacturing. We made custom DNA. So I cut my teeth in that world. And then when hackers started to become really problematic and I couldn't find a good solution, I started a company called ProCircular. And we do cybersecurity consulting of all sorts. We're sort of the turnkey place that you come to if you want to figure out where to get started or where do we go next. I also recently founded a firm with some colleagues called Cybercade that is really two things. It's an approach to trying to help educate people to avoid cybersecurity risk. And we think we've developed a really compelling measuring stick to help quantify human risk, which is a thing that's really never been done well before. So I'm super excited.
Yeah.
You can imagine we make extensive use of AI in the work that we do. And thank you, John, for the chance to join.
I really do think the whole security aspect of AI as it's adopted is super critical, and it's probably not talked about enough. Neither are ethics and governance for that matter. So welcome. And Jeff Moyer, how about you? Because I know you're coming into this probably kind of like me. You know, we've seen different technologies hit the market over our career. And, you know, when we see this happening now, it's got to it has to feel like old hat, but it's still really novel too.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride, the AI journey we've been on. But currently today, I'm a CEO of a company that we buy up software providers who deliver software to telecommunications companies around the world. Prior to that, I ran a natural language understanding company, did sentiment analysis for some of the larger companies out there where they're looking for reviews, they're looking for feedback and how their products are doing. And then my career has been a lot through large systems integrators with DXE, Rackspace, Hewlett Packard, working around the world,
Right.
variety of industries, working on a lot of different tech. And to your point, John, AI is new, it's cutting edge, but it also, as I've worked with it now for almost a year, takes me back to some of the basics of IT still apply. Still a lot of garbage in, garbage out. If your AI is looking at the wrong LLMs and uncurated data, you get some very interesting responses.
I gave a talk in Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago to an FBI group called InfraGard, and they had a lot of questions about AI. But I think you're spot on. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, so I've seen a couple of big things come through. This reminds me a little bit of when back in the day when everybody first got a look at Netscape, right? So here's the internet, and here's a browser that you can use to gain access to the internet. All of us nerds were digging around in the internet long before that, right? Much like AI, ML is a well understood technology, and it's the generative, and I think really the consumerization or making it available to everyone that has changed the game for AI a little bit. But it reminds me of when the internet became a thing, that now everyone is connected and everyone can find, and look, if I put this out, I can get beyond just my hometown. I can have people in Czechoslovakia looking at this document. That those sort of realizations.
Sure.
I think you read a new one about AI every day, but they remind me a lot of, let's call it 1990, when the internet started to perk up.
Funny, at the time I've spent producing the podcast and having a lot of different guests on, I've had a couple of CIOs on with sizable companies. Fortune 500 CIO. I've had one probably in a Fortune 1000 company. Had a couple of really high-end big company CHROs on. And I've had a whole lot of people who are at Series A or they're VC or they're somewhere in between. And it's really remarkable to me to hear about the different paces at which people and companies are willing to adopt AI. Like the bigger companies, outside of you get outside of tech and get companies that use tech but aren't tech per se, they're taking a much slower approach to it. They want to make sure they invest the right pace, the right place, the right time. And that kind of leads me to a question that I have for you all is when you see this and you see the different cadence or different pace at which companies are moving, what changes would you see artificial intelligence bringing to job design responsibilities and job descriptions in general? Because this has a potential to create some huge fractures, some huge fissures in the market about who recruits what, why, when, and where, and what a candidate should do to adopt to it. So, Anna, if you don't mind, could we start with you on that one and get your thoughts? Because you're dealing with kind of a double layer of technology between AI and augmented reality.
It's a great question because I think that, as I mentioned earlier, AI will definitely change and already change a lot of things in our everyday life. And sometimes people really scare about it, but it's open up new capabilities for everyone. We can discuss from the different sides, but I can share some examples. So first, I think one of the main benefits for using AI is shake off routine task. Because every time when we work about a job design or everything, we, in the past, we continue and we copy all our actions every day, and it's like a little mess. It's close like space for creativity or something like that. If we can transfer this job for AI, it will open up more freedom for our brain when we think about a task. It's just the first way. The second, I think globally, AI will change what we think and what we need to our job. Doesn't matter who we are. And doesn't matter what kind of job we want to have or what kind of like application we want to apply. So it doesn't matter. AI will definitely change what kind of skills we need to have from every industry and every business and every role, because it doesn't matter that you're a programmer or marketer or designer or manager, I don't know, like CEO, you need to have a new skills. What kind of skills? It depends what kind of AI and where application you want to see in your business. I give an example. In our company, Endeavor, we thought, let's in the close future, we can take our conversation, like everyday routine conversation, how is going on, what is about to task, what is like roadmap or something like that, when you don't need to have like a creative brain. We can transfer it to our AI assistant. Mm-hmm. Because from the first level, just collect information, make some summary, it can be from AI. You don't need to have your routine work asking every day the same question from your team. I know it's maybe like sounds like little crazy, but as Aaron mentioned, like 20 years ago, everything about internet was crazy. But now every day we use it. Who knows what our behavior will look like in the next 2-3 years. I'm optimistic about technology. I think it's going really fast, but we'll see. In any case, I just want to say, let's try.
Jeff, what do you think about that? How's AI changing the design and responsibilities around jobs as they exist today?
The big change we've made, because we've been on a full throttle, pedal to the metal AI first approach now for about a year. And I just approved a job description for a product manager that looks nothing like what I would have approved a year ago. I'm less concerned with their product management knowledge, and I'm more now concerned with their adaptability, their knowledge around AI. Because with AI, it'll teach them. It'll educate them on what a good project manager looks like if they know how to use the tools properly. So we're seeing that across, from my position as a CEO, I'd never thought I'd be a Python coder, but I loaded a Python compiler on my laptop over the weekend. From what we're doing in QC and QA and code, troubleshooting with customers, tools we've been able to develop and put in their hands so they become more self-sufficient when they're troubleshooting our software they're working with their clients. It's a big shift in how AI takes out workload. We did an all hands this morning, and we do hackathons on developing AI in the company every week. And there was a lot around how do we continue to drive that out? How do we advance from the cyborg phase where we're playing with email, where we're doing ChatGPT, we're using tools to improve our searches, to where now we're automating, we're AIing out entire departments and just letting AI handle that work because it's consistent, it's repetitive, it has some variations, making sure we can drive that out of the company.
I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. I had an interesting conversation with a gentleman a number of weeks ago. We're talking about quality of hire and how there's this really great study done, I guess maybe a decade or so now ago, where they tracked 20,000 new hires over 3 years. And at the end, they fell into 3 buckets. This is a successful hire. This is an okay hire, but if we could go back, we'd make a different decision. And then it was what we used to call the AO bucket, all others, everybody who either left or was fired because it was the wrong hire. And that first bucket was 19%. And the first thing this guy said, he goes, that's the Pareto principle. And I just wonder if AI is taking over that 80%. And that therefore there's an opportunity for us to drive our true productivity much higher because we're focused just on that 20%.
Yeah, we are starting a little bit of I call it an experiment where with new hires, we're running their CVs, we're running their social media, their LinkedIn profiles through our AI to say, is this candidate, based on everything you can learn about them and they've provided us, a good fit for our culture? Because we're looking for people to adopt that. We've got second brains. We're having everybody build a second brain, and we're connecting all those brains together. So we want to kind of use AI to help us make that 20% closer to 50 to get it right the first time. Because we don't want to bring somebody in, waste 6 months, and then start again.
Well, if you get it to 25%, I think you've hit a home run, quite frankly. And that's a huge competitive advantage over time. 50%. One thing I've learned as being a headhunter for a couple decades plus is that I can't control a big chunk of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people start jobs and quit, nothing to do with the company. They had a family issue or a health issue. I had one gentleman who actually was killed in a car wreck 45 days in. Broke my heart, frankly, because I worked really hard on it. He worked really hard. It was a great match. You get this, there's some placements you make where you're like, in the back of your mind, you're like, this is going to work out. But then there's other placements you make is like, dude, this guy's not leaving for the next decade. I'm going to look again and he's going to be the CFO or CIO. I mean, it's that kind of a placement. Mm-hmm. And just, it was gut wrenching to see that happen. And there's always going to be that stuff you can't control. The challenge, I think, is over time, can you win more often than not? And insofar as AI can help us do that, to your point, Jeff, I'm excited about it. I had a conversation with a gentleman developing a technology that helps measure cultural fit by first measuring the team's cognitive diversity and their culture against incoming candidates. Does this person truly fit in a cognitively diverse way so as to help this team? And do they fit the cultural piece as well? And I think Aaron's probably got a comment to throw out on this because he's, right in the space as well, adapting AI to different areas in cybersecurity and education.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, John. There's so much, in HR, in human capital management, right? A lot of the decisions there are made on people's analysis of what is true. Is this resume real? Does this experience look legitimate? Does this person, what are all those basic things? AI is going to cause everyone to ask that question a lot more often. Is this thing real? Right? I think over time, it'll also enable us to answer that question. But in the interim, it's going to be kind of a confusing time for everyone. The working out, Jeff's example is a perfect one. We've done some similar things with bots that are trained with our core values, that are trained with our managers. We've trained them up with our managers. The manual for the managers, the employee manual. So it actually often has better and more consistent answers to HR related questions than we would have because it knows the rules. In two specific examples Jeff has brought up really come to mind. One, it's enabled us to find discrepancies between those big sets of policy, right? Like you've got years that it takes to evolve HR, right? The different policies that you have to put together in order to make this a great workplace. Sometimes you create inconsistencies and so on and so forth. AI is great at picking those things up. So in that world, we've seen, some really significant improvement. And Jeff's example of job descriptions, we've written some of the best job descriptions we've ever had. And that's been done by pairing up not just what does LinkedIn or whatever say about this job description, but what are the things that we need to accomplish, and comparing those two things to produce a job description that is written around what is it you really need, instead of casting that super broad net for a human that probably doesn't exist, right? I'd like a project manager
which is happening more and more.
And she needs to have project management experience in software development, and I need somebody who also would be great if they knew Oracle and SAP, but if they don't, IBM would be okay.
Had 10 years of Chat GPT experience.
Yeah. That's a trickier one. That might come into, that might be where your AI fact checker is handy, right?
Sorry, I had to throw a curveball out there because that's the old proverb, as you see that stuff. They need 10 years of experience in this. Well, this guy, only has, 7 years of experience in it. Then you find out, well, the software package has only been out for 6 years. And this is one of the guys who developed it.
Unless he was at MIT
because
labs,
a lot of times HR doesn't know. Yeah. But you hit a good point here that I want to expand on for just a second. And Jeff and Anna may have thoughts around this too. There was a study, I want to say it was between LinkedIn and Harvard Business Review a number of years ago, in the teens, somewhere here in the teens, where they extrapolated that something like 80 or 81% of all profiles on LinkedIn had a material misstatement or error. So Jeff brings up the classic, which I brought up 1,000 times in the past 6 months or 12 months, that it's still a computer system. It's still good in, good out, garbage in, garbage out. So I'm curious to know how that impacts the changing jobs, if you will, the changing job descriptions that, in my mind, are taking hardcore skills, chemistry, electrical engineering, nuclear sciences, biomedical, whatever it might be, and marrying it to AI, to data science, even to coding and development. I'm just curious, how much is that going to impact it? Because if ChatGPT, my understanding, a big part of its training for their LLMs, they use data from Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at people who use Reddit, there are probably 2/3, maybe 75% of them vote for one way in a political sense, and the rest vote the other way, or they really don't care. So obviously that LLM is going to be slanted towards the bulk of what it ingested, right? So how long does that take to where you can tell AI, feed it a resume and say, okay, is this person for real or not?
Well,
and what's the liability associated with that?
Yeah, I mean, you could tell the Chat GPTs to correlate against different LLMs. You can have it only give you factual responses. Don't create anything, because the GPTs have a way of filling in the blanks the way the human brain does. You see something, it fills in the white space. So you try and tell that, and you look for it to correlate information, and you look for it to come back and say, here's where I found inconsistencies. Here's where I'm able to corroborate. Here's where I'm able to correlate. And here's where I found some things that didn't quite line up or make a lot of sense. And it could just be a simple typographical error in a date in a resume where they stayed a year sooner or a year longer than they said they did. Right. But it could be something major, that they put the wrong degree in LinkedIn to burnish their credentials more. So I think there's ways to put the guardrails in with the LLMs, the Chat GPTs, that will prevent a lot of that. But again, like anything, you got to prepare for the guardrails. You got to code the guardrails.
And you got to be patient with it, although it seems like every time we blink, something new is unfolding. But Anna, I'm curious, at what point are we going to start interviewing people with AR goggles on and have like a talking avatar head in front of people at a distance instead of having to be on a laptop or a phone?
So it would be amazing, right? The main challenge will be how you will to define it's a real person or just AI voice.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I've had anecdotally hiring managers tell me they've interviewed people on video, and their biggest skill that these people had was that they could read the Chat GPT answers while they were looking at the screen and answering the question. And you come to find out the person doesn't know their right hand from their left in whatever field it is. It's just that they had this interviewing assistant. And I think that's a real question. How does AI alter the recruitment process, the interview process for candidates?
Imagine a situation. Sorry, I have a very funny mood today, and maybe it sounds like crazy, but imagine the situation. You have AI HR assistant who will interview your potential new employees. And your AI assistant will interview the avatar from guy, I don't know, whatever, who will also use AI to go through the interview. So I know today it sounds like a little crazy, but believe me, it will happens a lot of time.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And what we will do in this case. But first, it will be interesting to see result. The second, the second, I think this is one of the reasons why the process of interview, when different people in the company discuss from the potential new employee, will never, or maybe not never, but in a close future, not change. Because, it's like when you try to, it usually depends from the side of a company, of course. And if we discuss about the big corporations, of course, the new employee should go through the hell, through the different departments and take interview from the different people. But from the startups, usually one, maybe two person make a decision to take new people in the team. And this is a challenge,
Right.
because when you will use immersive technology and you will make interview through avatar, like avatar with avatar, it will be really difficult to define it's a real person or not. Because the main point in our work, it's about empathy. We need to understand who you are. And will we work together? We share same values or not? Or it's about a culture, of course. I mean, like corporate culture. I just figure out how we can solve it. Honestly, I'm not sure that I have answer right now, but I'm sure that we will need to try and see what is a new problem we will have in the market and what kind of decision we can have. But the next, another side that I just thought, but we definitely will use AI assistant from the first or maybe second steps on the job interview. And the good point, what we can use, we can feeding the data about how we decide what is important for us. I mean, like a company, what is not only about the work experience, but also about like personal metrics. I mean, like, do you love read or something like that? And a lot of this question, if company has a good data about how we can go through job interview process, we can feeding and create a personal AI assistant for their company. And I think this is one of the trends that we will see in the close future. It's funny because in our company endeavor, every year we have like internal trends, how we will work and what is important for us about our self-development and ours. One of the trend in our company for 2024, it's about how we will work and how we can build our personal AI. It's about what kind of data we will share and how we can work with it. And following the topic about a job interview, imagine that then I can collect all my personal experience, all my decisions, and all reasons why I say yes or no to my personal AI assistant. And it will be like a huge experience. And it will be a great work how I can use AI to take me off from some routine process. I think it's incredible. I think it's
especially if it speeds it up. And gives you greater accuracy on your quality of hire. And we will have to be careful about the falsifying, if you will, like an avatar. My avatar, full head of hair. Done. And they see me in person. I show up or something in a video conference. They're like, what happened? Oh, yeah, I just shaved a horseshoe on top. I think that could be a real challenge for some of us. I mean, and I saw Aaron really looking pretty intense.
So there is a big debate in the cybersecurity industry about what does this do to the professional services that people provide. Just as an example, we have some younger folks that have joined our firm. We've had individuals under 30 who have left the firm to go work at Amazon or Mandiant for $250,000, $300,000 a year. It's like a 26 or 27-year-old person. So that individual I see a bunch of things when I see that. I see somebody who, the gap in talent is so great that companies like Mandiant are willing to pay $200,000-$300,000 a year for these folks. AI will supplement some of that. I don't think there's any question about it. In what form it takes, we could argue about that, but I think that you'll see on the kind of high end of things, particularly in fields that are relatively new, AI is going to make, I think, have a serious impact. If for no other reason than we don't have a choice. There simply are not enough people to hire, so we've got to find other ways to answer these questions. The other thing that immediately came to mind, we were talking a little bit about risk associated with fakes or false voice or false. We have already handled a few different situations where an individual has been talked into doing something. That CEO on the road leaving a voicemail, that happens all the time, and it can be shocking to hear your own voice in a voicemail that something else has created that you had no involvement with producing. And today it is every bit as believable as the people on this call. Anna, as you've mentioned, one of us could be an avatar. It's not me, I promise, but
and I would have a lot more.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm telling you.
For sure. I'd have picked up.
Oh, thanks.
For sure. I will never say yes or no.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's and the other piece of it, John. Inside of the firm, we handle very sensitive data, right? Some of it is PHI. That's very common, and every healthcare or every HR department has PHI of some form or another, even if it's in the form of I'm depressed and I need help. Right? That's protected information. So in a world where the stakes for the data are very high, cybersecurity is certainly that. We have taken actually a very aggressive approach to AI. Honestly, I look at it as self-preservation. I think that you either, in cybersecurity and compliance specifically, you either embrace those tools and learn good, bad, and otherwise what they mean, or I think very quickly, Jeff, to your point about your interviewing, I think very quickly people are going to find that they're not nearly as interesting to an employer as they would have been if they had jumped in and really gotten their hands dirty with AI. You're just able to do so many more things. You're more of a utility player with AI than you are just somebody with a great set of skills. It enables them to color outside the lines a lot better than somebody who, is very good at the thing they do, but it's a narrow thing they do.
Well, we're starting to see a transition, I think, where 80%-ish of really technical jobs, petroleum engineering, chemical engineering, we can go right down the list, fall within AI capabilities. And what becomes more important are things like the ability to manage people, be the human in the loop, be more of an editor than an innovator. And the people who really need those technical education skills are going to be people who are the innovators. Because as we know, AI can do repetitive stuff and it can synthesize, but it hasn't done so well. And it's going to be a while, I think, before it actually truly creates like a person does, because the empathy factor is missing, among other things. But when I look at this, I kind of sit back and wonder, as we transition to, hey, we need these utility players, these people, maybe Aaron, a good way to describe it, it's more important that they have sound people skills and business acumen than they have, a PhD in electrical engineering or physics or whatever it might be. Although I've met some really cool PhDs with, focused in areas of physics that just blow my mind. But could AI do that? Yeah. Can they do it human to human, like the conversations I've had? No. And that's the part that you can't fill in the gap in. But question for you, Jeff, when you look at the transition that's going on right now, do you find aspects of it, kind of playing on what Aaron was just talking about, that are concerning or might even be so problematic or worrisome that it kind of keeps you up at night?
I don't know if in the work that I do and what my company does, I'm not handling a lot of PII, PHI kind of data. I'm not kept up at night about that. What keeps me up more at night is really about the business acumen of the person writing the AI. We've got a lot of inquisitive people that don't put things into business contexts. So they create solutions that may inadvertently expose information that we don't want exposed, that may inadvertently cause issues on a telecommunications environment that create holes in it for companies. And a lot of it is around, you mentioned it earlier, John, the shift between being an innovator to more, we call them curators. They're really curating AI to get it to do a business function that derives value for our clients. We're not doing AI, to a certain extent we were as we learned, but we're not doing AI now for the sake of doing AI. Now it's being getting down to the point of what's the business value it creates? Does it make us, is it a force multiplier for our sales team? Is it something the client can get a faster, quicker response for their end client? Can they recover from a problem quicker when the network goes down? Does it cut that 5-hour window to 5 minutes to recover from something? So why are we doing it? And where's the focus we're putting on it? And how are we curating those solutions? Because I mentioned it earlier, it's really IT 101 that we've got to kind of keep control of. We're creating a lot of GPTs, we're creating a lot of solutions, but we also found out as we started pushing them out to the masses in the company, the guy in the back end was still creating and he's changing. And it broke some processes that people thought they were using AI that was going to be consistent. Well, as he upgraded it, he upgraded the one version of it.
I mean, I think there are metric tons of pitfalls we got to watch out for, right? Because it's like any new technology coming out, there's going to be issues. And I mean, I remember to the earlier comment about Netscape, I haven't heard that term in a while, and having an internet browser for the first time. And, you had a modem, you had the little tune that played in the background and the buzz and the rattle, and you get out there and every bit of new territory AI takes in, just like browsers in the 90s, gives you another layer of exposure as well. And the exposure, though, is not necessarily technical. The exposure, I think, in many cases, is missing the judgment and the connection of a human in the loop. So one of the questions we want to address, and we kind of already touched on it, is how will AI transform the sourcing and selection process? And then following all of that, what are the potential pitfalls, unintended consequences? It's the old proverb kind of, as you look around the market and somebody says, we only want to hire digital natives. Well, that DQs me right now because I wasn't raised with a phone in my hand or a tablet on my knee. No. I was raised reading paperback Western novels and biographies. I wasn't, brought up in that context. We had a stinking 30-foot tall antenna. We got CBS and PBS. That was my technology in the 80s, Oh, look, I got a watch. It's a calculator, and we work on that. And so the unintended consequences of that, maybe it was intended. That's a question for a court to decide, I suppose. Is that enable ageism? Does that allow us to chop off a huge section of people out there with talent and skills and then claim, oh, I can't find enough talent? And, there are going to be lots of pitfalls like that. And the thing of it is, and I just did a white paper on this November of last year, wherein looking at companies applying AI into the recruiting business or from the corporate aspect across their applicant tracking systems, they're not really changing processes. They're just speeding them up, which is fine. But there's a layer of application in there that I think are not only going to be explored, they're going to be explored rapidly in parallel by a lot of players. And there are going to be a lot of players doing it. It becomes kind of an incidental. And to your point, Jeff, they're going to develop something and then it's going to radically change overnight because the developer wasn't done developing it, because it's not like rolling out a Windows operating system. And we want to have, less than 80% of the code to have bugs in it. Well, we all know it's probably about 95%. But anyway, dig at Microsoft
Jeff,
once in a while.
Jeff, you can tell Jeff's background from some of the things he said, and I love it. We're starving for some things that we've gotten kind of spoiled with because of the IT revolution, right? Things like virtualization, things like compartmentalization, or being able to move. You referenced let's say that I build the world's best GPT and I want to expose it to the world. That's still a complicated thing to do. And portability is virtually non-existent between these LLMs, right? So just because you've built a really cool thing in your basement doesn't mean that you can put it on Amazon's homepage and it's going to work like a charm. There is still that sort of scale up process that's necessary, with the difference between beta or alpha or development software and production software. I have launched maybe 1 or 2 beta applications into production in my life, but there's going to be examples of that over time. Again, I'm the cyber guy, and I can tend to be a little negative on this stuff, but I've never been more excited. I think there are super cool answers to a lot of these terrible questions. It's going to take time, right? It's going to be a while before.
Right.
The other thing that comes to mind, one of my colleagues in Cybercade is an artist and a writer. Cameron is his name. Cameron worked on World of Warcraft. He worked on the highest selling Call of Duty. He did the World War II version of Call of Duty. He has a storied career, AAA game designer. AI is, I don't know if you've seen what's happening in the gaming industry, but it is decimating the creative departments within the gaming world. The thing that I think Cameron and I have had long conversations about this, but a thing that I hold hope out for with Cameron is that AI will make making things relatively easy. It doesn't make making good things relatively easy. Just as when electronic music came out, everybody's like, oh my God, now everybody can create Zeppelin's 4th album. It's like, well, no, they can record a song, but they're not going to get Zeppelin. Right?
Yeah.
So a real artist, somebody who has really unique ideas and really creative vision. I'm not saying you can't get some of that creativity out of AI, but I think we will recognize it for what it is when it comes from a human who really has an artistic sensibility, as opposed to a robot that we've trained to kind of look like that. I think the legitimacy of the human creative process will shine through, and hopefully will be enabled by AI. So it doesn't take you forever to build the thing that you have in your head. I'm pretty excited.
We've been telling our team, you're not going to get replaced by AI. You're going to get replaced by the person who knows AI and who uses AI.
Exactly.
That's who's going to replace you. Because you can't remove that human element. You can't take that out. You're absolutely right, Aaron.
Jeff, another promising thing, I think, unlike, I think we've all done some software development work. Unlike opening up an IDE and trying to write code in C++, right? You have to know what you're doing, even with all of the assistance and AI Copilot and all of that stuff. AI, even today, as those GPT tools are put together, just about anybody can write software. It's much easier for an individual who's 60 plus to make use of tools that are usually the domain of people who just graduated from college. I think some of this evens some of these generational gaps out.
Playing field.
Because if you can describe what you need really well, you can get a GPT to give you what you need.
And that's what we're seeing some of the younger people struggle with, because they speak in emojis. They speak in abbreviations. They don't speak in thought out concepts and sentences. So they struggle with prompting and getting a full idea together and getting a GPT to give them what it wants. They want to pop an emoji in and say, okay, go for it. And it doesn't quite work that way.
hear my grandmother saying, Aaron, if you cannot say what you mean, then you never truly mean what you say.
That's actually a very pithy statement. That's kind of like the Countess Dowager on Downton Abbey.
Let's apply it to AI,
know.
and she's not far from that. Grandma was a lot.
Vulgarity is no substitute for wit. Oh, sorry. Anna, I'm sorry. I know you had a thought to throw in here on this.
Yeah, no worries. So I just want to say, wait, come on. We also, in our generation, sometimes don't understand our parents. And I think it's like a native evolution. Every generation move on and make something new that previous generation really struggle to understand.
Mhm.
Like, and it's normal. It's nature.
Yeah.
We should be adaptive. We want to have it, but it's not a good or bad. It's just a true and it's real life. Because so I saw a lot of children when we had the first experience with, for example, augmented reality books. And believe me, the modern children from the 2 years old don't understand and don't see a difference between real and digital world. It's really native for them, and it's normal. But following the topic, I think we all agree that we can consider AI and any immersive technology like superpower for human. And it's only our responsibility, like not from the like global or corporate, I mean like also in a personal responsibility, how we want to use it and how we will use it in to make our stronger and our skill more interesting and relevant from the modern world. Because just from the creative industry, some example, yesterday designer, doesn't matter from the gaming, 3D, graphic designer, any designer, should have skills how to work with, I don't know, like Photoshop or any programs. And we need to have a creative brain, of course, but we also need to have a hard skills how to work with hands on any program. What happens today? Today, any marketer can be designer using Canva. Tomorrow, because it's no code, tomorrow, anyone who want to be designer need to have one more skill. We need to have ability to explain what we want to see, because we use generative AI technology. We just need text. How many designers do you know who really good talk?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of, because designers never think about it. It was not their responsibility. But today, if you want to be a successful designer, you should not only to make some draw skills, you also need to have communication skills, because you will need to have a communication with AI assistant, and you need to explain what you want. And the main result, what you will have, like a result of your work, it's how clear you understand and explain what you want. I know it's like a lot of words about explain and understand, but it's true. It just we need to have a clear communication with our AI. And for example, before, if you want in some industries, like people who really don't like to talk from our people, and it was fine. Today, everyone, or maybe tomorrow, okay, will not scare audience like tomorrow, but really close tomorrow. Everyone will need to have a skill communicate with AI as well.
You bring up a really interesting point, and it's not one I've had any real direct experience with. The work that you do is inherently artistic, right? But AR is the marriage of the real world and virtual reality. How have the designers, the artists who are used to building worlds and used to doing it with that mouse and the usual tools, there's a UX piece here that I don't think I've heard discussed a lot. How well did they adapt? People who are used to using keys, what's been your experience with that group of people specifically, and creators? And
so it's interesting point, because From one hand, creators are people who really open for something new, because it's their job, it's their professional skills. If you're a creative person, you need to open your eyes and open your mind to everything from you. From another hand, sometimes it's really hard to make new skill, because as I mentioned before, if you have a good sense and good skills to draw something using mouse, it's 1K. But today you need to have a voice. You need to speak about it. You need text it. You need to describe it. And it's mean that you need to be just only a designer, but also like writer, copywriter, editor, something like that. But from another hand, the good point that using immersive experience, when designer used XR glasses, XR devices, special devices, like Apple will say it, so it doesn't matter. They have more space for their creativity. I mean, like not a physical space, but also they can move their object, see around, make something, big changes very faster, because you just need to say, or you just need to create using your hand. And you can see prototype, and after you can discuss the prototype from your colleague, and faster and faster all process from every stage.
But it gives you more capacity
from a human
to be
side,
more of what you are.
Yes, of course, more capacity, and you can work together. And for example, we have a case, and sometimes we use it in our company, when we create AR scene from one of our projects. We can discuss. We not share like link or file. We open AR space. And using our functionality, it's like, we call it like AR Zoom, when you can call and you can see AR experience, AR asset behind you. It's really easy and faster to discuss and make some changes, because you can go around, you have a lot of space and hours. And from my side, it's like, again, so I see this technology like a human superpower, when we can make us stronger and extend our capabilities and our skills. And this is the reason why I call it like, we have a personal responsibility how we will use it. Because like people can decide, it's not for me, I'm too old, it doesn't matter anything, or something like that. But honestly, it's a little stupid, because if you have a new tool that can make you more stronger and opens to you more opportunities in your work, you need to use it.
Anything that allows you to be more of you. And I would build on that a little bit, and a couple of prior comments too. When you look at what AI can do, let's say on average, we take any job out there and say AI can do 50, 60, 70% of it. The real gains in a marketplace over time, I think, are going to be found in the margins, where the human differences matter, where you cater to a particular group or another, yes, but also how that group perceives your solution to their problem. It almost comes down to, the old adage, we can talk about AI and robots all we want, but people still work for people.
Yeah.
And until you automate the complete procurement process for a company, it's still a person pulling the trigger. And believe me, telling you as an outside vendor, it's not just one person, it's the grief you get from the accounts payable group trying to get your invoice paid sometimes. And you're still dealing with people. And so building on that, I'd ask the question of you all, and maybe Jeff, start with you on this one, but with AI coming on, and I'm picking you out specifically out of the group because you talked, I think, the most earlier about how you're using AI day to day, and say, for example, in the selection process for talent today, and where you're taking it tomorrow, right? What do you think that's going to do to external recruiting services, or even internal recruiting services for that matter, over the next 3, 4, 5 years?
I think it's going to force them to adapt. They're going to have to look at how they're selecting talent, how they're positioning jobs, because
Mhm.
the AI you'll get basically the same information from everybody. There'll be no secret sauce generally in how AI is going to evaluate a candidate. And each one of those recruiting agencies is going to have to use the human element on how they market those people, how they position those people. Who do they put those
Yeah.
people in front of? How do they evaluate? I think it's going to force them also to look at who they're recruiting for. Does the company they're
Mhm.
recruiting for, do they understand their culture? Do they really understand how to fit them into that environment? Because that human element is still going to be where people can differentiate. When we look at AI and how we're using it in our company, you're getting consistent results. You're getting very similar results. And it's how each individual person, from my coders and how they view AI and what they put together from a chat GPT, it's very
Mhm.
utilitarian. It's very command line-esque with the interfaces versus some of our salespeople and our marketing people who create pictures, create graphics, make it look different,
Right.
make it look more appealing. And that's because of the human. That's not the AI. The human involvement
Right.
has to create that differentiation. And that's how I
It's
think,
how you're using a tool.
yeah, exactly. Because it's still a tool. It's still a tool.
Mhm. And one of the things that's caught my eye, of course, I sit in this industry, so it should catch my eye, but I think it's going to be potentially epidemic across all sectors, all markets,
Yeah.
is
Mm-hmm.
the potential commoditization.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much of products. We expect that over time in any marketplace, right? We go from competing on something that differentiates us to competing eventually on volume and price. But the commoditization of people,
Yeah.
and of services rendered by people that require a level of intuition, a level of judgment that can't provide you necessarily with the warranty you would get when you buy a car, right? You buy a car and say you have a 100,000-mile warranty. I guarantee you somewhere between 100,000 and 125,000, you're going to have an issue that's no longer covered by the warranty that's going to stab you right in the pocketbook.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask me how I know when it's recorded. I've got some bad things to say about it right now. But, no one can guarantee something forever, but there's still, I think, a tremendous amount of value and utility in the differentiation we all create as individual humans. But in so doing, if 60% of the job or 80% or whatever that number is, there's a degree of commoditization I think we're all going to be feeling. And I'm curious if you all see that happening as well, because it's not just going to impact recruitment. It's going to impact consulting. It's going to impact software. It's going to, as a service. It's going to impact everything.
But
ideally, it does, unless there's some sort of weird collusion going to the market.
We've seen that trend over the last decades. When you think about COBOL and mainframe computers back in the 60s and the 70s, that was the predominant field. There was a commoditization of COBOL programmers. There were a lot of them around. They kind of died off as C++ and all other languages came on. Y2K hit. COBOL programmers all of a sudden became very valuable again. And they attained a level of importance that they didn't have before. So I think we've seen that through client server. We've seen that through the .com bubbles. Skills get really hot. People gravitate to it. Then they get a center mass. AI is going to be the same way. Google's hiring a bunch of people for a lot of money. Well, the more people that have AI skills, that's going to diffuse the pool of people to do that. So it'll level out. It'll come to a natural equilibrium.
Honestly, at this point, I'll use the analogy because I think it fits. A lot of people credit hackers, particularly Russian hackers, for being chess players, when in truth, a lot of the time they throw spaghetti against a wall and see what sticks, right? It looks a little more elegant in the reporting than it is in practice. And I think given the importance of the things we're discussing and frankly, the newness of the things that we're talking about, I'm going to take that throw it against the wall strategy and see what works. So a few examples in our world, we've developed some really cool bots that know a lot about compliance. So is this thing something that I should copy to the internet, or is this not something I should? If I have made this mistake, what do I do? We do a lot of consulting work for our clients, and I'm hoping that we can augment it by adding in some of these really well-designed bots that give good answers that are specific to your domain. So we've gone kind of down that rather than, digging our heads into the sand or, trying to find, we're actually getting kind of aggressive about trying to find any and every way to integrate AI into the experience that our clients have with our firm, just because I think the alternative is to do nothing or very little. And given the timing of things, I'd rather make some mistakes early on and find one or two things that work.
What's the most important thing that you think AI will not, or perhaps should not, change about recruiting? And that could come from the perspective of your company or from the perspective of an external vendor like me, but I would encourage you also to consider the perspective of a candidate and the candidate experience. What is it AI will not change, or we could also say should not change? I know those are two similar but maybe different things. But what are y'all's thoughts on that topic?
The one thing I hope it doesn't change or shouldn't change is the human interaction as a team, because you still need to have people who can maybe not think alike, but get along. They can tackle a problem. They can do the storming and norming and forming functions to get a problem solved, even while they're using the AI skill sets. I don't want that. I don't think that will change for quite some time.
It's a good point, because Jeff called it human interaction. I call it personal connection. I think, yeah. So it's just the first idea that I got in my mind when you ask this question, but I'm not only about interaction in a team, I also about a personal connection when you need to make a decision, take this person to your company or not. Because afterwards, of course, you need to work with them, you need to interact with them and others. And maybe it should be like a little challenge from the big companies where work more than 10,000 or like 20,000 employees. Maybe in the future we will have AI with some empathy or something like that. But I think the personal connection today, it's a really good point that don't be changed. In any case, if in the summary, you need to think and you need to remember that AI can make a decision, but you will work with this human.
It's still people and people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's in the end, we may not make our robot overlords happy, but our robot overlords aren't necessarily building relationships and empathizing with us and sharing our dreams and our hopes and our visions. And hopefully they don't melt our eyeballs in the process.
But AI never can replace a dream, like dream from a big letter. When we go to work, all people have some dream inside. And this is sometimes it's one of the big and important reasons why people started to work together. I think you remember, like from the like I forgot. It was a story from NASA when people said, "We work to go person to moon. Doesn't matter who I am. I'm working from a big mission, big goal, and a big dream." And imagine again, following my example, in the future, AI avatar with AI avatar will have a funny interview between each other. They cannot explain a dream, but I'm like a human, have inside.
And again, one of my big dreams is that my avatar to have a nice, luscious hairdo. Some waves in it like I used to have. I'm being facetious a little bit, not very facetious. It's not far off base, Anna's got to tell good dad jokes. Aaron, what are your thoughts on that? And give you the closing answer and comments.
John, I think the biggest thing that recruiters bring is context. In a world where you can go find resumes or people or whatever, the data isn't really the thing. It's the context and it's the combination of those variables. It's pretty rare that we have a single position open, right? It's usually we're up to something. We're building out a department or we're strengthening this part of an existing. A good recruiter understands those needs and says, that person that you were looking for, you sent me the job description, which by the way was greatly improved by AI. But you sent it to me, but I don't, the other two positions you're looking for, I don't understand how these things fit together. But what I could do is go find this, that, and the other combination of skills between these people. I think it's the totality of the need of the client that you're going to get in a way that AI will never understand. You understand why. And that is a very hard thing to teach AI. Yeah, you can teach AI what, AI can show you how. It can even tell you who. But why? Not so much. That's a human thing.
It's another question.
Like, what is this business even trying to accomplish, right? You take a specific example, pick on ProCircular a little bit. We're a cybersecurity firm. I need people who can handle very tense situations. I need people who can handle, who can learn to keep quiet when they learn a thing about a company they know or a friend of theirs, or that stuff happens all the time in our industry. I can explain all of that till I'm blue in the face to a chat bot, but you're going to understand somebody who you're going to understand through your interactions with others and from your experience and the 20 years that you've done this work. You're going to understand why I'm asking the question in the first place. And that's something that AI will have great difficulty in eliciting. So I think context is really the answer to my question. I think recruiters, when they can come up to speed on the context for an organization, build that relationship, I still think that is, especially for important combinations of positions, I think that's a real advantage that you guys are going to have over, over the chat bot that can scroll through LinkedIn.
I appreciate that because I think it's salient. I think it's an important observation. I've noticed in this industry, and I've heard it many, many times, and I think it's proven out every day that I work here, and you probably have all seen it as well. When it comes to talent specific, especially, there's a science to it, no doubt, that AI can assist with and perhaps even do even 100% of. There's an art to it as well.
Yes.
There's a yin and a yang, whatever analogy you want to use. And you find that's true when you manage people. Because when you manage people, there's science behind it. You can be a Deming acolyte. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it, sort of a thing. And that's cool. But guess what? It's still people.
Yeah.
And people aren't homogenous. No matter how much we look around at the person to our left or our right, we're not homogenous. And some of that goes to hopes and dreams, like Anna pointed to. Some of that goes to understanding the why. And some of that just goes to people are people. And as my mother said before she passed away many, many, many times, people are nuts. And that isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a bad thing by inference, but it's just that you don't just always know about people. They may perceive something different than you do in terms of what's in their best interest. And that's part of life. And that's the curveball, I think, that AI is going to take a long time to catch up to.
Yeah, I agree.
And until then, it'll just be trouble with the curve. Let me say thank you very much, Anna, Jeff, Aaron. I mean, y'all come from very different backgrounds. I think we've had a productive conversation here, and a lot. And I mean a metric ton and a half of great information and insight. Some of it scares me just a little bit. I'm worried as anyone about being commoditized or kicked to the curb. But some of it also makes me, feel intrepid in terms of what we're looking forward to. There's going to be pitfalls and curves and rocks in the way. But you know what? We're all climbing that same hill right now.
Yep.
So thank you all for joining today.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. It's nice meeting you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Drowning in the Tech Talent Pool. This podcast is sponsored by Sabretooth. Sabretooth improves the quality of hire and speeds up the time to fill specialized machine learning, data engineering, data science, and developer roles, stretching tech recruiting budgets further by bringing the precision of retained search and the speed of contingent search to the market in one complete solution. Find out more at sbr2th.com and follow me, John Light, on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening.